Alright, what's going on, friends? Here we go. So, it's been a brutal week. I worked 60 hours this week. Last Monday, a storm ripped through Iowa, leaving 50% of our crops demolished. 125 mile an hour winds. Basically, an inland hurricane, they're calling it a derecho. Wiped out our power for 4 days straight. I was in misery. I preferred to be at work, let's just put it that way, because we had air conditioning. But it's been a nasty fucking week. I haven't had a lot of time to listen to a lot of stuff, but so let's just do a collection update. Not a whole lot of deep dive reviews as you probably are accustomed to, but let's just talk about some records. Let's just hang out, let's just have a good time, get back on the train, as it were. Turn it up a little bit over here. So I'm digging around just like a bunch of old weird kind of non-album stuff in my collection. I've got like little stacks of CDRs and shit here and there buried around in various corners of the house, and I realized that I have had these things for probably 15, 20 years and never listened to them. So I finally put them on. These are some compilations that a coworker of mine made for me back in 2003 or something. I'm just taking a stab here. Dude was a meteorologist studying to be a weatherman, and he was into like rare old early hip hop, breakbeat, DJ kind of stuff, and I was like, I don't know shit about that, man, but cool. And he burned me 2 mix CDs, and I was like, alright, I appreciate it. Never put them on. Until the other day, I was like, you know what, man, the burden of guilt has reached the 20-year limit. Let's fucking put them on. So, I've kind of been enjoying listening to these things, actually. I don't know any of this stuff, but it's fun. It's kind of sleazy, New York-y kind of stuff, all from 84 to 86. Okay, 83, one of these. Volume 1 is rare mid-80s rap, and he's got it like sectioned out by vocoder rap, political life issues rap, and 808 breakbeat rap. We're not listening to that one. I felt like that was too like curated or segmented or whatever. This is just like anything goes. Rare mid-80s rap volume 2. We got Clarence, Blowfly, Reed, Kid Frost, Amazing Kid, and Cutmaster Lee, Death City Boys, The Empire. I've never heard of any of this stuff. Like, I'm kind of well versed in some other genres. You would think maybe the likelihood that I would have heard of some of this stuff. But I mean, the same goes, the inverse would go for him. I would make him a fucking mix CD with fucking Arcanum and whatever all over it, and he would be like, what is this? So, I don't know. Kind of cool. Mixing it up a bit. So, I'm kind of on this kick of like buying vinyl versions of some of my favorite records. They're kind of like breaking the seal on bands that I don't own any vinyl of. If you're maybe kind of new to my channel or don't follow a lot of like how I collect, CDs are my main deal. To me, the 12-inch vinyl format is just like, I love this album so fucking much, I want to have a big copy of this to enshrine my love of an album. Or in some cases, it's a chance where like I bought a used copy of this album 25 years ago and I've loved it ever since, but now that it's reissued on vinyl, I have a chance to kind of have this appreciative exchange with an artist or a label to say like, I love what you did back then, and if you did it again, I would totally support you monetarily by doing it all over again. So couple of bands that are like put out some of my favorite records that I've just never owned on vinyl. For Victory by Bolt Thrower. Marty and I keep like talking about this album on the live streams lately, and it keeps coming up, and every time it comes up, I think, man, I should fucking get that on vinyl. I should actually listen to it more often than I do. When I first picked it up in a used bin when I was 18 years old, it blew my goddamn mind, and I listened to the shit out of it. But I may have even kind of burned myself out on it. Not to say that it isn't a fucking brilliant album, bar none, my favorite Bolt Thrower album. And maybe one of the best kind of, after all the smoke had cleared death metal records of its time. I think it's fucking perfect. You know, not to say anything bad against War Master or Fourth Crusade, they're fucking great, but this thing just has some of the catchiest tunes death metal has ever fucking come up with. I think this thing is actually underappreciated. I don't reach to it for the brutality of it. Boy, he didn't mix this fucking mixtape very well. The volumes are kind of all over the place. Let's see, where are we at? We're on track 5. This is Solo Sounds, or Chili, 1983. Made an order with Paragon Records out of New York. Some of that stuff is here, some of it is for another collection update. I'm just kind of sectioning things off with no sense, but I got really stoked when I saw Ultra Rare on something, and I thought, holy shit, does this guy not know what he has? Sempiternal Death Rain, The Spooky Gloom. So this is kind of one of those, man, it's still kind of loud. Dude like DJ'd this kind of stuff at parties. You think he would know how to like keep the level of the volume on all the songs the same? Anyways, Sempiternal Death Rain is kind of one of those underground cult classic kind of deals. Look at this band photo, by the way. I wouldn't say it's necessarily up to the hype. It's fucking weird. These guys were Dutch, and this originally was released, actually recorded in 1989. So like, that piece of information really does a lot to lend some credibility to this album. It's weird, it's forward thinking, it's very brutal. People say it's kind of like a Death Doom early prototype kind of album, and I wouldn't say it's not, but there's, I think that might be kind of like an incidental association for it. It's got some kind of lazier, limp-wristed, kind of laid-back thrash sort of stylings to it. If it were a little bit more better produced, maybe remastered, and if the playing were a lot more tight and succinct, I think this could have been a huge album. And then maybe if it weren't called The Spooky Gloom. It came out on Foundation 2000 back then, but if I didn't mention it, this is a bootleg. He was selling it for $15, and I thought, you know, that's kind of like in that level of like, maybe he just doesn't give a shit about like making what it's worth off of it if it were an original. Oh, but yeah, I was a little bummed to find that it is a bootleg, because he was selling other bootlegs for $5. I bought a couple of like reissue, reprint kind of bootlegs for $5, which like I'm fine with ethically all day long, but like doing this and then going like, so I emailed him and I was like, hey, just so you know, so you don't sell bootlegs to anyone else, you sold me a bootleg. Thanks anyways, have a good one. Just so like, I don't know, he acted like, oh, I didn't realize that, I got them from Hammerheart Records and they told me that they were legit. Really? Anyways, this, as far as I know, is a legit thing. That this is a fucking killer banger. Yeah, you can barely see it, man. If I take it out of the case, maybe. Blåkmene were a band from Sweden, and this is their debut. Am I right? Porphyrogenesis. Ordinarily, copies of this thing go for about 80 to 125 euro. And I managed to find a promo, like hole punched copy of it, missing the J card, for a lot less. But still, like, it was some change. I paid more for dinner tonight than I did the CD. Let's just put it that way. But killer fucking record, man. Like, I reach for Ethereal's Nord pretty often. I kind of think of that as a benchmark of like amazing early Swedish black metal. And this picks up quite a bit where that left off. And in fact, this, I think, deserves a lot of credit for kind of giving rise to bands like those early kind of orthodox Swedish bands like Onskapt and Watain, Sorhin, kind of along those lines. So it's like creepy as shit. It's just excellent, eerie, just hyper vicious fucking melodic black metal. It's really, really, really good. But like where a lot of that kind of stuff around like 94 to 96 era was a little bit more spacious and had a little bit more room to breathe. This around 98 when it came out is like really pumping up the aggression meter. So like it's fast and it's intense, and the drummer, so like the lineup on Ethereal from Nord going on, it's always kind of like confusing to me, but I want to say the drummer on Ethereal's Nord went on to play in Blotmane. They also did an album after this called Ash Cloud, which is not as great, maybe a little bit more clicky and kind of digital and a little less melodic and immersive as this. But the thing about this is Eric Bauer brought this up maybe 2 years ago or so, saying like, I would love to have a copy of that, or I can't find a copy of that for less than like $75. And I was like, pretty sure I fucking have that. Ran down to my collection and I didn't have it. And I don't know if I've ever actually owned a copy of this, but for years I thought I did. So in that way, I'm kind of like revisiting the album, because I did used to listen to it a lot on MP3, but I've been definitely trying to like cull out all the old bootleg MP3 stuff. Oh, this is super quiet. And replacing those MP3s with legit copy CDs, reissues, whatever. But killer record, regardless of the story. Porphyrogenesis by Blotmane. So fucking good. For something completely different, so I thought about it, and I might even double dip on this album in a Bandcamp rundown. I discovered this on Bandcamp somehow. I don't really know how I came across it or fell in my lap. But the tape is sold out. I believe they have 5 or 10 copies left of the CD from last year. The project is called Aindulmedir, and the album is called The Lunar Lexicon. So you could throw this one along with some dungeon synth. I feel like associating this with a lot of that dungeon synth would undermine how brilliant, well performed, well written, and how carefully composed the atmospheric soundscape is on this record. It's completely immersive, it's hypnotic, it really, really just transports you to this mythological kind of fantasy kind of place, which I get a lot of dungeon synth can do for you, but this is a lot more subdued musically and has a lot more attention to detail in the fine little sonic qualities to it. So headphone album for sure. Excuse me. But dude, this is so fucking great. I believe I paid something like $28 after shipping to get this thing from Sweden. So worth it. It's amazing. I've always kind of liked Det som en gång var by Burzum, the ambient track on that album. Really all the ambient stuff that Burzum has done has not only is it like really great ambient, but it has this quality to it that for some reason, I don't know if it clicks like this for you, but it makes me feel like waking up at the crack of dawn, maybe even before dawn, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and being somehow like outdoors, kind of like ripping off the cobwebs and stretching out for the day. And it reminds me of like this dewy, kind of foggy morning in the grass, going somewhere to do something for the day, and just feeling like lazy but positive and kind of regenerated in a way. Weird that I would feel that way about fucking Burzum music, but it's just the way it is. Let's talk about this album. So all week long, I pretty much only listened to the new Imperial Triumphant record. It's called Alphaville. Felt pretty good about the little mini review I did of it on my Instagram, which you should follow. So this is a band that I kind of slept on. I checked out Vile Luxury for a minute, maybe a year or two ago. This band is kind of an ilk that I kind of have a hard time with. And when I heard Vile Luxury, I guess I was probably assuming it would sound like something, and once I made the determination that it sounded exactly like I thought it would, I went, nah, fuck it, I don't want to hate this, so I'm going to shut it off. I'm actually going to return to Vile Luxury, I think, because this thing knocked me on my ass. So I feel like there's maybe a lot of hype preceding these guys, or maybe since they've signed to Century Media, there's like a new kind of audience that people are hearing about this band, but maybe don't know what they are about or what they sound like. So I kind of went into Alphaville with a fresh slate. I was like, let's just listen to it and see what it sounds like. It reminded me strongly of Portal's Vexo Void, or some of the more structured and more musical moments that Portal have on offer. But I know a lot of people hate Portal, and it kind of bugs me how people like disregard them as like a noise kind of band. They're doing stuff. But maybe a comparison to Gore Guts would make more sense and maybe convince you guys that Imperial Triumphant is worth listening to and is really intricate. There's so much depth going on. They're a power trio, kind of three-piece, playing this discordant, noisy, cacophonous, avant-garde kind of... I kind of hesitate to call it metal. Compositionally, it is really estranged from a linear, kind of familiar context that you're used to, and in that way I think it would be really challenging for a lot of people who aren't more adventurous listeners. But I challenge you to check it out. Just give it a listen and see what you think. It is absolutely chaotic and brutal and weird. It was, however, I think lend a lot of gravity and accessibility by it being produced by Trace Bruans from Mr. Bungle and Faith No More, who was one of my musical heroes, mostly for his work with Secret Chiefs 3. So, like, dude at the helm, along with Colin Marston, making everything sound really, really great and palatable and slick. In a way, some of what Colin Marston does to a record kind of bugs me in how it sounds kind of more clicky and digital and not real, but for this kind of thing, it actually works pretty well in my mind. But dude, this just fucking knocked me completely on my ass. I couldn't get enough of it. There's a lot of depth to it going on with different instrumentation, variation, and style. A lot of attention to sonic qualities. There's a lot of kind of choral moments and vocal kind of experimentation going on, stuff that you wouldn't hear in a metal record whatsoever. So I feel like it has a lot more in common with a lot of other kind of New York, maybe East Coast based kind of noise rock kind of bands, experimental jazz, a lot of that kind of periphera, ephemeral kind of stuff that kind of disregards genre and doesn't really belong in that kind of stuff, especially in like a Century Media black metal kind of context. Kind of blows that out of the way completely. But check it out, it's super weird and awesome, avant-garde, dissonant as fuck, and it's just really chaotic and cool. Let's see. We don't have time for a whole lot more. I don't know how this came across my desk or what, but I wound up picking it up on Discogs for a couple of bucks. The band is called Eviscerate, and the EP is called Beneath Dying Skies. I kind of want to say maybe Pat from Ground Zero Salem put this as an intro in one of his videos or something. But this was like a short-lived band. I think this is all they ever did. There's a ton of stuff in here. Got this die-cut kind of CDR thing. But this is some, like... Actually, it's not a CDR. Real CD. Kind of like in the late 90s, early 2000s, hardcore kind of started to meld into some of the metalcore kind of stuff and get really vicious and sound really black metal-y. But But they also adopted a lot of the melodicism of stuff from Sweden, like via At the Gates and In Flames. Like 97% of it was total fucking garbage. But this, I may be wrong in saying that that's kind of what this is, but reading through the lyrics and kind of looking at how there's like this DIY aesthetic and there's a lot of these black and white, like cops beating people kind of stuff, like I get where they're coming from. But dude, the performance, the songwriting, the skill, the songwriting on this is just absolutely devastating. They've got some ferocity of like a really hyped up beefy fucking grind band, but there's a lot of like real attention to detail with the melodic and the guitars. The vocalist fucking slays. It's really fun, really quick little EP, and then just picked it up for a little bit. Looks like someone bought it at Goodwill for $1. How about that? Also picked up another classic, fucking Opus Nocturne by the almighty Marduk. This is the first time I've bought a Marduk LP, which seems kind of weird. Like I listened to the shit out of these guys early on, especially Heaven Shall Burn. But Nuclear War Now had copies of several of their earlier albums, and I just thought, man, Opus Nocturne, fucking love that thing. Catchy fucking tunes. I kind of became more familiar with Marduk by way of their live album. Check this out. Let's see if I can get some light on this bitch. Look at that. Oh. By way of their Live in Germania record, which has some of the best songs from Opus Nocturne, Dark Endless, Those of the Unlight, and Heaven Shall Burn. Killer performance. Kind of plays like a best of, and it's also just a ripping fucking live album. But that was the album that kind of made me go back and remember and realize, like, man, Opus Nocturne fucking slayed. These songs are so good, so vampiric and memorable and just catchy and just nasty. Marduk were fucking...